Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we will talk about something interesting about Azure Logic Apps. Azure Logic Apps is a low-code workflow automation offering which enables creating quick workflows for different use cases in Azure Cloud. It is particularly useful in integration scenarios where cloud applications are integrated with on-premise or other cloud systems. Now I will post a separate video on just the basics of Azure Logic Apps, but in today's video we'll talk about an interesting use case. In the standard plan Logic Apps, many workflows can be created and hosted in the same underlying infrastructure. Now parameters is a useful way to define variables that change per environment. You can call them as environment variables. So if you navigate to the parameters tab, you will see I've defined three parameters called key1, key2 and key3 of type string with the respective values value 1, value 2 and value 3. Now these values are the ones that change for different environments, and whenever I deploy this Logic Apps workflows to another environment, all I need to do is just change the value here and I do not need to touch the underlying workflows. It's as simple as that. Now that I've defined three parameters, let me show how these are actually referred to in the workflows. I've created a workflow and I open them in the designer mode. So in this workflow, if you see, it's a very straightforward, simple workflow where I'm defining a variable called key1var of type string, and this variable has a scope of just this workflow. Now in the values, as soon as I click it, and in the dynamic content tab, I see the list of parameters that I defined earlier in the parameters tab. So I click on key1 and just save it. It's as simple as that. Now let's run this workflow and see what is the value set of this variable. I see that the workflow succeeded. I click on the workflow instance, and if you see here, the value of this variable has been set to value 1, which is extracted from the parameters defined earlier. It's as simple as that. Now let's talk about the actual limitation in Logic Apps. In Logic Apps, the standard plan, you can define 50 such parameters. That's the maximum limit currently. And there could be scenarios where you're defining multiple workflow within this Logic App instance and you might need to define more than 50 parameters. In such cases, how do I do a workaround to overcome this limitation? What you really need to do in such scenarios is define a parameter. In this case, I call it parameter 1, and the type of this parameter I define it as object instead of string, and I'll tell you why. And in the value, I have a JSON object instead of a string. So here I define key1 with its value 1. Similarly, key2 with its value 2, and key3 with its value 3. It's as simple as that. So instead of having three separate parameters of string type, I define just one parameter called parameter 1, whose type is object and the value is a JSON object with key1, key2 and key3 defined with its values. Now that I've defined just this one parameter, I do not need these three parameters. I just delete them and I save them. Now obviously, since I've defined the parameters in a different way, there is a change I need to do in the workflow, and I will show you that change. I click on the workflow, go back to the designer mode, and in this task where I'm defining this variable, I delete this key one because I no longer have this parameter. I instead go to the expression and I type the expression, which is to get the parameter 1. And now for the interesting bit, from this parameter 1 I get the value from key 1, and this is a standard notation which we can use in logic apps to get values from a JSON object. So what I've done is I've extracted referring to parameter 1, and from parameter 1 I'm getting key 1 and storing that value in this variable called key1 var. Since the value of key1 is still a string, the variable type here doesn't change, it still is a string over here. I save this. Let's run this workflow again now. I refresh the workflow instance. I see the latest instance. Let me open the instance and show you the runtime. So if you see here, now the workflow is run and it still extracted the value 1 and stored that in this variable key1 var. But the only difference is here I've just defined one parameter against three parameters which I defined earlier, thereby completely optimizing the way you use parameters in Logic Apps. Hope you guys got an understanding of this quick workaround or solution. Please do subscribe to my channel to watch other such interesting solutions, and also click on the bell icon to receive notification whenever I upload new videos. Thank you and good day.